What makes someone evil? Is it a thing they do, a power controlling them? And can anyone truly be evil? Well, in today's video, we're going to be answering exactly that by diving to 3 scenes from The Shining to once and for all answer if Jack is truly evil. The first scene to talk about is the interview scene. So, we pick up on Jack, a recovering alcoholic who had a very dark past, ranging from abusing his family to truly horrid actions. And later in the film, he describes when he first went into the hotel as a feeling of some sense of force or magic that gives him a sense of pride and in turn is able to control his emotions, not to his knowledge. The interview then starts, and it starts going really well. The owner describes the job and its requirements, yet he warns about the isolation and its effects. But unlike most people would be, Jack is actually intrigued by this, as he's been wanting to write a new story and find a way to cure his writing block. Jack then answers some questions, and while he does, he keeps a professional tone and charm to him throughout the whole time. But right when the interview is about to be over and they're about to hire him, the owner mentions one final thing, which is about 10 years before this, there was a man who ran the same job Jack will that killed his whole family with an axe and then shot himself. Now, Jack's initial reaction to this, like anyone, comes off very stunned, but states how the owner has nothing to worry about, and it won't happen to him. And this first idea of violence acts as almost a seed planting inside of Jack's mind, in which the hotel is using its job opportunity and power to try to manipulate Jack into the image of him killing his family. And because of Jack's past, it almost acts as an opportunity to trigger and set this idea off, almost giving and placing a wild idea in his head, so that in the future it's easier to make him act it out. Yet Jack's initial denial of this shows how he ultimately sees the act of violence, especially in this specific case that could apply to what he's done in the past, and ultimately denies it, as he's trying to better himself and is initially rejecting the power of corruption the hotel can hold. Now, I'm sure off that basic introduction to Jack, he seems like a pretty nice guy, and seems like he's not too harmless and he's trying to better himself. But after Jack takes the job and his family drives into the new 5-month home, as they drive in, the car ride is very representative of how Jack treats his family. It starts out like any other long family car ride, with Danny complaining that he's hungry and Jack stating how he should have had more breakfast. Yet as it begins to escalate, the conversation turns to the Donner Party, and in turn it turns to cannibalism. And oddly, this is the first time Jack actually seems excited in this whole car ride, even telling his son about the origins of cannibalism. And when Wendy gets mad at him for this, Danny says how he saw it on the television already, with Jack rudely agreeing and snapping back at his wife Wendy. Now, a couple things here are interesting. First off, the whole car ride, Jack's face only lights up when cannibalism is mentioned, which shows how he's kind of just a dark, twisted weirdo, yet the whole time he devilishly smiles, as he's still trying to uphold a correct presence and personality, but deep down, he's dreading every sober minute with his family. Jack also finding joy in cannibalism shows how he still values violence, and taking control of that emotion in him will not only be easy, but regardless of whether they're going to the hotel or not, he seems like in enough time that he's sober, he might just do it anyway. Another crazy thing about this scene is that this happens before they even get into the hotel. And yes, Jack has already been in there for the interview, but all this odd behavior in the car is purely Jack's own feelings and emotions. So keep that in mind as we move along. The next scene to talk about is the drink with the bartender scene. Now, this scene starts out with Jack stating how he would sell his soul for a glass of beer. And this practically gives the hotel permission to greet Jack, which is exactly when Lloyd, the bartender, shows up. He then serves Jack, and when Jack realizes that he doesn't have the money he believed he had in his wallet, Lloyd states how he has enough credit to pay for his drink. He then toasts and raises his glass, and this is important as it shows how even though he knows everything around him is empty, whether it is the entirety of the bar or in turn the glass inside the bar, he's seeking out alcohol, the one thing that turned him so violent and crazy. And it shows how the hotel is now engulfing him and is engulfing his past addiction in an attempt to control and manipulate him. He then takes a sip, yet after he does, he holds a very strange face, and Lloyd asks if he's okay. Now, the sip acts as his first submission into the power of the hotel, which is why after he drinks it, it seems as if he's never experienced anything like it before, as for the first time, he feels fully engulfed by the prideful feeling the hotel originally gave him while he was being interviewed. And this is also why Lloyd, or the hotel, asks if he's okay, meaning if he is able to handle this newfound power and, in turn, unconscious corruption. Jack then takes it like Lloyd was asking if he's physically doing okay, and in a weird couple sentences, he keeps flipping back and forth between being happy and very serious. And as he begins to joke about Wendy being a problem, he turns stone-faced and tells Lloyd that he can handle it, as he's now admitting to the hotel that with this newfound power, he will be able to not only keep it, but do anything it takes to make sure it remains sacred. And because Jack keeps believing that he has to justify himself to the hotel and meet its requirements, he begins to talk about when he broke Danny's arm. And again, because of what happened in the past, he tries to justify himself to the hotel, who he thinks is poking fun at his violence, but in reality is using it to take advantage of him. And because he is so used to being shamed for it, he keeps denying it. But when he finally acknowledges again what he did in the past, he again shows his capability of violence, and through his anger and hatred towards Wendy, he begins again embracing the hotel and its power. Now, the second bar scene happens a little bit later in the film, when Jack walks in on a 1920s party, and as Jack sits down, orders, and gets served his drink, he takes out his money while dancing and enjoying the hotel and its liveliness. Yet, Lloyd denies him the pleasure of paying and says how he doesn't need to pay and that it's orders from the house, meaning the hotel and its powers, ordered Jack not to pay. And because they only care about the effects the alcohol will have on Jack, Lloyd even adds in it, telling Jack to
drink up, Mr. Thomas.
Jack then wants to know who's paying for his drinks, and Lloyd states how it doesn't concern him yet, as Jack has not become fully transformed into the state of the hotel's control. And although he has fully submitted, he still has some life left that the hotel is trying to drain from him through his new drink. And again, Jack falls for the bait this time, even fully dancing and embracing the newfound culture of the hotel, and in turn, its control and corruption. It's also interesting that both times Jack does not pay, as the hotel is providing the alcohol and its effects to Jack, in an attempt to gain more power and control over him by making it more appealing and like they care for him. Jack then gets a drink spilled on him, which leads him to go clean up in the bathroom, leading us to the final scene to look at, which is the bathroom scene. The scene starts out with both characters walking to the bathroom, keeping a very kind and calm tone with each other. They set their drinks down, and Jack feels the need to say the exact name of his drink, as it shows how much this whole time he's desired it, and in turn, how much he's desired the power it gives him. Also, this is just a tiny thing, but every time I watch this scene, I notice how Jack puts his drink on the urinal every time, and I just think it's really gross. And there's like obviously a space that his drink could go right here. I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, I just always thought that was really gross. But back to the video. So the server begins to clean Jack's jacket off, and then when he states his name, Jack becomes confused, as the server says how he's Delbert Grady, the man who Jack once heard about in the interview and in the newspaper. And Jack begins to question Mr. Grady, and in turn, the reality that surrounds him. And with this final question of asking if Mr. Grady was the caretaker, he also states how Grady killed his wife and himself, trying to almost break and question this illusion that now seems to be playing a trick on Jack's memory. And then comes the biggest moment in this shift, as Mr. Grady states how Jack is the caretaker, and that Jack has always been the caretaker. And as this happens, you can see Jack's smile slowly fade, as because he has been kept in isolation so long, he cannot separate reality from truth, and instead of denying himself being the caretaker, he fully embraces it, acting as a moment of rebirth where Jack no longer questions what's around him, but he accepts it as the truth, which is then why it is so easy for him to be turned against his son, the one person he swore to protect. As Grady leaves with one final thought, he shares a time in which he corrected his wife and kids, planting another seed in Jack to go and seek violent bad things, and also acting as a connection to him, in that they both had problems with their family, and in turn their family interfering with their work, whether it be Jack's writing or ensuring the hotel's power, which ultimately leads Jack to set out and fall victim to the corruption of the hotel through his violent past and future evil intents. But now we have to answer this question once and for all of, was Jack really evil? And the answer is, well, kind of. So the best way to describe this, because of how complicated it can be, is to imagine there are two versions of The Shining. One is the movie version. In this version, like we saw in the car scene, Jack is pretty selfish, bitter, and cruel. And although at surface level he seems like a nice guy, he has done, and most likely will still do, bad things, even if it weren't for the hotel. Which is then why he seeks out and finds alcohol, and then gives his life away to Mr. Grady in the Overlook Hotel. But then comes the second version, the original book. And in this, instead of desiring his past addictions, Jack really is a recovering alcoholic who has much sympathy, compassion, and regret for the horrible actions he once committed. And instead of seeking out a revenge or a release of violence on his family, the hotel fully takes advantage of him, even though he wanted to change. Also in the end of the book, Jack, while freezing to death, lets his family leave, as when he finally dies, he dies as a resolved and recovered man, who truly was only ever doing it because he was controlled by the evil that surrounded him and corrupted him, rather than sustained him eternally. And because we don't see these similarities in things in the movie, that was a great point of contention King had with the film. But as a whole, in the movie version, Jack always had the evil in him, and he just decided to find a way to release it. And because the hotel became the perfect option, he ultimately went as so far to kill himself just to give the hotel more power and to ensure its legacy, in an attempt to gain the revenge he craved for throughout the film, proving his evilness. And in the book version, the evil is not within Jack. Although he did wrong in the past and he committed horrible things, he still desired to change, and in that vulnerability found himself an easy target for control and corruption, yet one that in the end conquers and takes back full control, proving his real innocence. Alright guys, that's going to wrap up the video today. I wanted to do more of a horror video because of, Halloween in October and all. But yeah, let me know what you thought in the comments below, and I'll see you on the next one.